Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Sain Qazi here. Last episode of the series of session. With this particular video, students, very important video. With this particular video, we will cover the examiner comments about part C of the working we have done with pre-populated spreadsheet. Part C1, part C2 both. Point number 11 to 15, very much important. What examiner saying here with respect to the paper attempted by the students by September 23. So let's start. Yes. Part C1 using Exhibit 3 pre-populated spreadsheet. So number 1.11. First point. Easy marks were available, such as the calculation of fair value less cost to sell. Okay, very simple. Some of the working are very easy. Okay. Number 2, an efficient approach to gaining marks would be to copy the table of trailer's net asset from Exhibit 3 on the spreadsheet below the draft of CSOFP. We have done the same thing. Just copy paste the text of property, plant, equipment, other intangible asset like this. But be careful. Remember to include goodwill. With Exhibit 3, goodwill details are available below the table. So that's why we must be very much careful. After that, 2 columns can be added to the right of this. First, show the allocation of impairment loss. Second, the revised carrying amount. Same working we did. First, we just copy the data, putting the values, first column carrying before impairment, then adding 2 more columns. That is smart way of the working this. Save the time. Rest of the 2 paragraphs, same whatever we have done. Okay. Candidates who produced impairment working could then use this as basis for correcting pre-populated spreadsheet. Which means that whatever you have done here, for example, impairment loss and making an entry, you can use with the above correction. Like we just, during the question, what we were doing, just pressing the button is equal to and moving the cursor accordingly. Means reference of the working attach accordingly, and this is what about the smart working. Rest of the part is very simple. No worries, same we have done accordingly. However, impairment of PP and intangibles needed to be allocated between group and NCI, and this was often overlooked. So be careful, either full goodwill method or proportionate method. The full goodwill or proportionate method, irrespectively, full goodwill and proportion method, it's actually affect to the goodwill working. But other than goodwill, if the parent invests in the subsidiary less than 100%, so any adjustment related to assets other than goodwill, the adjustment need to make with the parent sharing and NCI as well. But for the goodwill, if full goodwill method, sharing with NCI or parent, and proportionate method only with the parent. But for other than goodwill, all the assets of subsidiary, allocate the sharing with parent and NCI. Okay. Point number 12. Once classified held for sale, the individual asset of trailer company need to be reclassified as their current asset and liability. We have done the same. This is important. Huh? Almost all answers showed an understanding of the need of this. But the answers were often unclear whether to add or subtract the adjustment. So be careful about plus or minus. If liability debit, that should be minus with the correction. If asset debit, that should be added. It's basic. It's a basic of the accounting terms. Huh? This green is very much important. Huh? Although total column is not required, no presentation marks are awarded for showing revised totals, including adjusted total consolidated statement of financial position column would have made it obvious that adjustment entailed. As I have already told you, this revised consolidated statement financial position having no marks. If, for example, you have 17 minutes to attempt this question, and by the end of 15 minutes, you have done all the things, then I can say that remaining 2 minutes you can invest for this column. But this column have no marks, no allocated. It's mentioned by the examiner. What if you completed your question by 17 minutes and you haven't made the revised column? Just ignore that. Just quick review your working and move for the other part of the question. Because if you are investing more time with this revised column, which is not actually the allocated time for this question, so you will lose some of the other question paper parts, either 4, 5, 6 marks of other question. So do remember this revised column having no marks. As a total column is not required, no presentation marks are awarded for showing revised totals, including adjusted total consolidated balance sheet column would have made it obvious with the adjustment entails. Another point, weaker answer, presenting an adjusting column in which individual asset of trailer were shown, but without a total column to show clearly what was to be done to these amount. That is, subtract them, marks could not be awarded. You just mentioning the total column, but your working is not properly presentable. Having said this, it is preferable that candidates use correct plus or minus sign of the adjustment, the column itself. Few candidates separate out the disposal group liabilities held for sale. Most included net figure using disposal group asset held for sale. Wrong. Assets presentation is different, liability presentation is different. Don't net off. Point number 14. Marks were available for workings, and many candidates would be benefited from improving quality of this. Methodical approach, sequence approach, methodological means sequence approach, helps avoid potential errors while making it much easier for marker to award marks. Some very weak attempts to this part of question merely provide revised consolidated balance sheet with no adjustment, evident cell formula or columns. Such cases are impossible to follow and marks cannot be awarded. Always present your working in a manner that once your marker will check your answer, easily track your figures and track your workings. If marker not able to track your workings, so you will not be able to get marks. That's why I must say labeled working. It is recommended that candidates use labeled columns to present adjustment to the draft consolidated financial statement. This is much easier for markers to follow than a string of numbers entered into cell. Particularly if those numbers are wrong. Just putting the figures in the cell, it's not presentable for SBR exam. Proper working, and then pick the figure of that working and adjust with the balance sheet or income statement or cash flow. It also enables candidates to check that their journal's balance, means entries, debit or credit, both are equals. So that's very much valuable. This examiner report is actually about the students who are going to attempt for the future exams. Now, very simple consolidated P&L. Part C2. Generally very well answered because that was very easy. The most challenging aspect in the case related to delay in sale and how to account for profit earned to date. Means net asset at disposal. Means so disposal date after the year end. So we just pick the value of year end, fair value, less cost to sell, and then incorporating the profit. So identify the figure of net asset at disposal date. The question requirement attempted to guide candidates to this point by underlying 30th June X6. So reading of the question requirement and the context is very important. So that is all about the key aspect of the examiner report. Now, what next? Students, this is what the slide that we started with the start of the first session. Ask yourself that at the end of the session, have you really got these learning outcomes or the key takeaways that I have told you with the first session, start of the first session? If yes, then do comment the feedback of these series of videos if these are valuable for you. Number one, we have done the group account practice question with the new exam format. Number two, I hope that you have learned the SBR exam rules for drafting and more for calculation, pre-populated working, all these things. If yes, do comment. If no, do complain. Number three, I hope you have clearly understand the right way to attempt not only question 1 but also the SBR exam questions. Number four, examiner report diagnosis we have done, where you have identified how to do working and what the things we need to avoid, do's and don'ts. So exam format, exam rules, right way, SBR do's and don'ts. So this is what about SBR quality practice guidance by Sen Kazim. I strongly suggest focus on quality, not quantity. Focus on quality. I suggest you have to attempt the SBR pass exam questions. Avoid the kit. Limited question covering all syllabus with quality practice. If you are attempting 100 of questions but not considering the examiner expectations, actually you are not preparing according to the examiner expectations. Students, the final point. I'm now going to jot down all the points at one place. By the way, before that, one important thing, whatever you have done with the C1, that 13 marks, this is the this is what about the allocated marks with the marking schemes. You have done the goodwill grossing up, you will be able to get 1 mark. Then fair value less cost to sell, 1 mark. Allocating impairment, 1 mark. Pro rata basis allocating impairment allocation, 1 mark. Adjustment impairment, 3 marks. NCI impacts, 1 mark. Retained earnings incorporating with the spreadsheet, NCI impacts retained earning, 2 marks. Carrying amount of asset liability impairments, 1 mark. Disposal group asset and liabilities having 2 different marks, and disposal calculation 4 marks. I wanted to share one important thing. The rule of own figure rule, OFR. What is this? Own figure rule. What is this, sir? Own figure rule. ACCA mentioned that own figure rule, which means that, for example, if you are going to attempt a question and someone by mistaken not gross up the goodwill, so that the mistake has made with the first step, but rest of the steps are absolutely right. So ACC marker just deduct your step 1 mark. Even rest of the figures also disturb if you are not grossing up the goodwill. Examiner will assume the wrong figure. This is called own figure rule. Assume your wrong figure, and based on wrong figure, check your rest of the answer. If all structures are right, you will be able to get all the marks. This is own figure rule. Same, for example, if you're done right with grossing up, first step you have done right, second right, third right, but some mistake you have done here, pro rata allocation. So 1, 2, 3, that's right. Examiner will give you the mark, and they will assume the figure of called own figure rule, and then move on for the rest of the parts. If the rest of the parts structure are right, you will get all the marks. So this is a very golden rule, and this is very much motivation factor for you people, because someone says that, sir, if we are going to start question, something initially become wrong, or in the mid of the things become wrong, don't worry. The golden rule, there are 2 golden rules here. Number 1, own figure rule. Number 2, don't be afraid and don't stop. आपने घबराना नहीं है और रुकना नहीं है. Means don't be afraid and don't stop. Keep moving. Keep moving. That's all. So this is what about the marking structure. Yes, compiling all the points. There are 3 SBR exam rules. 3 important rules. Number 1, reading of the question is an art. Number 2, always plan before attack. Number 3, whenever you are executing your answer, even theory, discussion based or calculation based, always organize your answer. So key points. Reading is an art. What key points? First, always start question reading with the requirement. First, read the requirement, shape up your mind. What is about question? With question 1, highlight the reporting date, and even other questions, highlight the reporting date. After that, enter with the reading of context of the question, detailed context. And then lastly, read the requirement once again and compose your mind. That is the reading. Number 2, always plan before war. Plan before attack. If you're going to enter in the war, first make a good plan. Plan with respect to the time, allocated time, and the rule of 20% time for planning, 80% for execution or the war time. You will win the war if you have made a good plan of time management, reading of the requirement, understanding the examiner requirement and the context of the question, and brainstorming as well. Never avoid the brainstorming. Number 4, whenever you are executing answer. So executing, number 1, drafting. Drafting have 3 components. Your draft must be well structured. Well structured means knowledge plus application. Always be relevant according to the examiner requirement, and conservative word count. Conservative means if you are practice drafting, you will be able to apply knowledge you draft the knowledge and apply with the case simultaneously. Conservative approach. So that is called well structured, including relevant and conservatives. About the calculation, execution about the calculation. Number one, specifically for the question one, that's about 14 to 16 marks. Working, always show all of your working, labeled working below the consolidated accounts. Examiner will highlight this is the working place below the consolidated accounts. Avoid, don't ever unreferenced workings. All of your workings must be referenced, labeled. Make the columns for the corrections or the missing figures. And be careful about plus minus. This is all about from my side. Last wordings for you people. May Allah, God bless you, the success of the exam. Once again, if you follow these instructions, number one, reading is an art. Number two, plan before attack. Number three, organize your answer. You will get the success. Students who are watching this video, thank you for your time. And if you really feel that you will get valuable insights, do comment me on the YouTube videos. Below the video, with the description of the videos, you will be able to get all the descriptive and the calculation material. My WhatsApp number is 00923218271784. You can contact me during office hours. Thank you very much. Best of luck for the exam. And the last point, don't be afraid and don't stop. Keep moving. आपने घबराना नहीं है, रुकना नहीं है. Don't be afraid. Don't stop. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.